2 weeks later, Van Dyke makes a speech announcing that Erebonia officially now has the largest military force on the continent after the National Mobilization Law has passed. As such, Operation Jormungand is announced, as they should have enough power to conquer Calvard within a year. We then change perspectives to see Estelle, Joshua, Ren, Lloyd, Ellie and Kia infiltrate in Orcus Tower to obtain information on what's happened in Heimdall. They make their way up to the central terminal when Ren and Kia begin to hack the terminal, but they are interrupted by Claire, Alberic and Maribel. The group is able to buy Ren and Kia enough time to finish downloading all the data before they make their escape. The group then plan to share all the information they obtained with the neighbouring countries, as well as help bring an end to the Great Twilight. Una, Kurt and Altina all awaken Eren Village at Emma's house after all passing out from Graal of Erebos. Emma then reveals that after their battle with the Black Holy Beast, all of the Divine Knights teleported elsewhere. Emma tried to teleport everyone out, however, Muse was not included as she teleported using magic given to her by Vita. After finding out that Rean is Osborn's biological son, Una groups everyone together and makes a speech where instead of feeling bad for themselves, the group should be more proactive. As such, Una becomes their leader to find and rescue Rean. Old Class 7 leave Eren Village to gather intel on Rean's whereabouts, whilst Randy, Una, Altina and Kurt train at the St. Graal Labyrinth for what lies ahead. Over the coming days, Old Class 7 alert the group of their lead on where Rean may be. It's believed Rean is held hostage in one of the gnomes' bases. Although they are unsure where the gnome's base is, they've noticed singularities across Erebonia's septium veins, and that investigating such singularities may point towards where the gnomes are hiding. As a result, the plan is for both groups to stabilise the septium veins by using stakes provided by Rosalia. Old Class 7 take it upon themselves to focus their attention on East Erebonia, while Una and Co focus on West Erebonia. With that, the group will leave Eren Village and head towards the Sutherland province. Once Una and Co arrive in the province, they investigate the neighbouring areas by visiting St. Ark, Palm and Titus Gate. They hear word that Ash has been spotted in the area, so they make their way to Hamal, where they find him loathing in self-pity. He is overwhelmed with guilt for his involvement with the release of the curse after giving into his anger and attempting to kill the Emperor. However, Kurt is the one to break Ash's despair by reassuring him that although he was a victim of Hamal, the hardship he experienced in the past doesn't define him for who he is in the present. However, this conversation is interrupted by Gilbert. Though with little difficulty, after defeating Gilbert, Ash rejoins the group. However, Zephyr appear and invite Ash to join their ranks after noticing his potential, as well as for the fact that he would be wanted for trying to kill the Emperor. However, Ash declines the offer with the two groups engaging in battle. Una's group is able to keep up with Zephyr, but that's when Rutger pulls out Zekta, the Palatinate Knight. Una and Ash attempt to battle against it using their soldats, though Fee, Sarah and Elliot arrive as backup to provide support. Rutger is impressed with Fee's growth since their last meeting, before shortly retreating. Afterwards, the group get confirmation that Hamal is the location of one of the singularities within the septium veins, as shown from the black pleroma grass growing. As a result, Una stabs the vein with the stake, restoring the septium veins back to normal. With that, the group return to Eren Village to rest. The next day, the group discusses developments across Erebonia, with Osmond's drafting continuing to drastically increase military power. The word spreads of Muse's plan to oppose the Chancellor with the assistance of Aurelia and Vita. With that, Una's group head towards the Lamar province and gather intel by visiting Milsante, Raquel, and lastly Ulster. It's in Ulster they bump into Nilsson as he researches the political situation happening in Erebonia. Una and Co then learn about the black pleroma grass growing north in Osgiliath Basin after talking with Telia and Kai. As such, the group head north where they find Muse and Aurelia surrounded by black pleroma grass. Muse introduces herself as Duchess Mildine and explains her plan to oppose Osborn. As a child, she possessed a gift for tactics, for she was able to accurately predict events to come. She correctly predicted the civil war in Erebonia, the annexation of Crossbell, the northern war with Northumbria, and foresaw the passing of the National Mobilization Law in preparation with the war with Calvard. As such, to prevent the war with Calvard, Mildine began acting out her plan as early as the end of the Civil War by reaching out to Aurelia and then later Rita. After Mildine claimed the title of Duchess to the Cayenne House, she was able to begin recruiting soldiers to her personal army. She then began negotiating with figures across the mirror to aid in her plan to stop Osborn. Una cannot fathom Muse's plan, as for her plan to work, it would require millions to die. She questions if Muse is able to live with the burden knowing that millions will die in her name. Though before she can process Una's question, the Thor's main campus interrupt their meeting. They cannot stand idle knowing that Muse plans to oppose Osborn, so they attempt to put a stop to her but fail in doing so. As a last resort, Cedric brings out Testarossa, the Vermilion Knight, to apprehend the group. However, it's not enough as both Old Class 7 appear as well as Vita, who reveals the Pantagruel above them. As a result, Cedric and Thor's main campus are forced to retreat. After they leave, Una stabs another stake into the septium vein, stabilising it. Una and Co then invite Muse to join their cause in helping find Rean, whom accepts. As a result, she gives full ownership of her army and the Pantagruel to Aurelia, whilst Muse helps Una's group find Rean. Una's group then return to Eren Village to rest. The next day, Rosalia congratulates the group's efforts as only 2 singularities remain in the Septium Veins. Old Class 7 opt to focus on the one in Heimdall, while New Class 7 focus on the one in Crossbell. The group infiltrate Crossbell with the help of Josette using the Bobcat 2. They gather intel on what's happening in Crossbell until they get a lead to head to the Geofront Sector X. They eventually meet with Yona and Sully, where both groups exchange information. However, upon trying to leave the Geofront, they are stopped by Heiyu. Luckily though, with the help of Estelle and Ellie, the group is able to escape with no issue. The group then make their way to the SSS building, where Yona digs up as much info as he can on the Orbital Net, but doesn't find anything regarding black permafrost. Instead, his attention is moved to St. Ursula Medical College, as there's been suspicious activity recently. Yuna and Co make for the college, where they meet up with Cecily, who takes them to meet with Emperor Eugent III. The Emperor informs the group about the Black Records and the events that would lead up to the Great Twilight. From what was predetermined, he has no remorse towards Ash, as he was simply a victim of circumstance. To honour his son's wish, he provides the group with a copy of the Black Records to help execute Olvert's third path to redeem Erebronia from its curse. Afterwards, the group attempts to make their way to the wetlands, but notice the area is guarded. As a result, they make their way to Michelin to sneak into the wetlands by an alternative route. Upon getting to the wetlands, they notice the black permafrost, but also a pillar of light. That's when they are ambushed by Campanella, Lecter, and Kruger. The 3 are able to fend off Yuna's group, but that's when Imperial Defense Force soldiers are alerted of Yuna's group, and begin to arrest them. However, Yuna's group fight back using their own sold-out units, but they can only fend off for so long before the 7th Divine Knight manifests. Rufus then reveals he is the pilot for El Prado, the Auric Knight, before attacking Yuna's group. However, the Knight is too strong to fend off, though luckily, reinforcements come to support Yuna's group. At first, Estelle, Joshua, Lloyd, and Ellie make themselves known by attacking the Imperial soldier soldats, before Ren and Blanc make themselves known as well. Rufus couldn't care less for the backup, for all 7 Divine Knights have materialized, bringing the Great Twilight even closer. With that, he and his allies retreat. With no more threats, Yuna stabs the last of the stakes into the Septium Veins. Although Yuna is reunited with Lloyd and Ellie as well as Ashmi and Joshua, there isn't enough time for idle chatter, so the group split up. With that, Yuna's group returned back to Erin Village. After analysing the Septium Veins, Rosalia confirms the Gnome's Black Workshop is situated 1000 ARG underneath the Lamar province. With the assistance of the villagers of Erin Village, Yuna and Co are able to teleport through the Spirit Path to Reen's location using the combat link Valmar shared with New Class 7 Soldots. While the group travels, Reen senses their presence and whilst in a berserk state, breaks free from his chains. Celine transforms into her human form to try and stabilise him due to the influence of the curse taking over him. Yuna's group manages to successfully infiltrate the Black Workshop where they sense Reen is nearby. However, both Yuna's group and Reen begin to get ambushed by OZ Archaeans for trespassing. The Archaeans are no match for both parties, but that's when George, Angelica who's under mind control, Ines, Nia, and McBurn stand in their way. The 3 groups are able to fend for themselves whilst Old Class 7 run up ahead to find Reen. However, Reen doesn't recognize himself, let alone his students. As a result, New Class 7 knocks some sense into Reen by reassuring how much he means to them. From using the Arcus units, every one of Reen's bonds are able to break the curse that's taking a hold of Reen. However, before Old and New Class 7 can celebrate, Albrecht, Arianrod, and Osborne put an end to their scheme. Dooley is conflicted, but asks Arianrod to leave the Sororita for the time being, as although she has the utmost respect for her lord, she cannot understand why someone as noble as her would want to bring an end to the world through the Great Twilight. Arianrod grants Dooley's wish and celebrates her newfound determinism before thanking her for the years of devotion. With Osborne's allies rapidly approaching, the only exit would be to use Valimar. However, Osborne will not permit such a thing before the 2 groups engage in battle. The Steel Maiden alone is a difficult opponent, but with Osborne by her side, Reen's group is struggling to keep up. It's thanks to Vita and Thomas that a one-way portal opens up to invite backup for Reen, which helps even out the playing field. Taking advantage of the opening, Reen heads to Valimar, awakening him and grabbing the Sword of the End. Osborne is not impressed, though, for Reen's fate has already been predetermined with the announcement of the rivalry of the 7. But with music announcing Millie Mirage to oppose Operation Jomungard, Reen and Co retreat via teleportation. After resting at Erin Village, Reen's group head towards Brionia Island to find Crow to understand more about the rivalries. They find Crow and Jubilee in the Soul Shrine, where they learn that the rivalries are a power struggle between the 7 Divine Knights, where upon defeating a knight, the victor absorbs their power. The knights battle until there is only one knight standing, where it will transform into the Great One. Jubilee then confirms that Vita's role within the Civil War was to create a pseudo-rivalry between Reen and Crow to try and obtain part of the power of the Great One. This wasn't due to how the rivalries can only be triggered when Erebonia is consumed by war. However, this plan failed when Duke Cayenne forced Testarossa to awaken by using Cedric, as well as Osborne stealing the Phantasmal Blaze Pan. Crow then pulls out his weapon to begin the rivalry, whilst Reen has regained control in the hope of messing with the gnome's plan. With both Reen and Crow fending one another, the conditions have been met with the shrine resonating to commence the first rivalry. After a battle between the 2 knights, Reen stands victorious with Ordine's power being absorbed into Valimar. However, Reen stops the absorption as he doesn't want to be the one responsible for killing Crow. As such, he returns Ordine's power, allowing Crow to remain alive before passing out. Reen later awakens in the cabin where Crow is still alive. Although Crow was defeated in the rivalry, by not absorbing his power, Reen has instead created a link with him, making Crow a subordinate of sorts. With Crow joining the group, all that leaves is Duvey, who at first is reluctant, eventually teams up with Reen. With additional manpower, Reen and Co begin to try and find the whereabouts of their other allies. They eventually get a lead to head to Ordis, with the group making it their first destination. After infiltrating into Ordis, Reen's group sneak through the sewers into the Cayenne estate, where they eventually find Toa, Empress Priscilla, and Governor Regnitz under house arrest. However, both Claire and Angelica stand in their way from freeing the trio. While being outnumbered, the two are defeated, with Toa managing to break the brain control over Angelica, bringing her back to her senses. The Empress has no inkling as to where Alpha may be within the Empire, which makes her the next priority. As such, they eventually hear of a rumour that Alpha may reside in St. Arc. They once again infiltrate into the city, where they catch sight of Wilhelm Bellard. They trap him and force him to reveal where Alphen is being held. However, he explains that Alphen is not in St. Arc. She was supposed to be under house arrest like her mother, but word of Priscilla's house arrest failing caused Alphen to be relocated to Drekno Fortress. They make their way to the fortress where indeed Alphen and Tita are stationed. Just like before, they are guided by Olaf and Neidhard, who pop a fight against Reen's group but ultimately are defeated. The group later finds out that the branch campus has been occupied by the main campus. They believe more of their allies are being held against their wills, so they investigate by infiltrating into Leaves. After defeating some of the main campus students defending the campus, they arrive at the Einhell Keep and find Tio and Elise guarded by Michael and Class 1 students. They are swiftly defeated and Tio and Elise join Reen. After rescuing all of their allies, Reen and Co fly to the neutral buffer zone above the Liberal, Erebonia and Calvard border where they board the Pantagruel. A proper reunion commences with the Liberal gang, Crossbell gang and Erebonia gang finally in one place to exchange greetings. A grand meeting is then held in place to discuss Osborn's plan, with multiple figures of Zemiro collectively agreeing to collaborate with Muse's Millie Mirage. Duchess Cayenne and General Legrand represent Erebonia, Prince Albert and Secretary Lucy represent Ramaferia, President Rocksmith and Second Lieutenant Kayla represent Calvert, Princess Claudia and Lieutenant General Cassius represent Liberal. The details of Millie Mirage are revealed, with Osborn having an army with around 1.2 million units. Their only hope is for surrounding nations to team together to stand a chance against Osborn. As such, Cassius will act as the supreme commander of Millie Mirage for his experienced combat in the Imperial Army once before back during the 100 Days War. Although the war will most likely cause casualties in the millions, it's Zemiro's only chance, as if Erebonia successfully invades and annexes Calvard, Erebonia would possess the power to invade and annex every remaining nation on the continent. However, the meeting is suddenly interrupted when Ouroboros' Glorious begins to attack the Pantagruel, with Osborn's allies raiding the ship. As such, Estelle, Lloyd and Reen separate into their groups to counterattack the raid. With Ouroboros unleashing the second generation of Aeons onto the ship, Reen and Crow have no other option than to summon their Divine Knights, but Cedric and Rutger do the very same. That is until another ship arrives. The Courageous II makes its debut aiding and defending against the Aeons, as well as dropping off more reinforcements for Reen and Co. Oliver then reveals that he is still alive before declaring his own plan, Operation Radiant Wings, as an alternative plan to Muse's Millie Mirage. However, Cedric is fed up with the interruptions and intends to go all out using his Divine Knight, but that's just before Osborn makes him put a stop to that idea. Osborn then greets the other political figures before challenging Olivert by explaining he has 6 days until Erebonia begins its war on Calvard. With D-Day announced, Osborn's allies retreat in preparation for the rivalry of the Seven to commence. While aboard the Courageous II, Reen and Co are ready to align themselves with Olivert's plan. Olivert then explains the method to his survival was in part due to Blanc teleporting the crew out. However, it wasn't a clean escape, as Olivert had lost his eye as well as Victor losing his arm in the process. The next priority is to investigate the Lunar Shrine, for it will reveal the truth of everything that has led up to this point in time. As such, Reen's group head towards the Gala Lake, where they find the shrine emanating with mana. As they enter the shrine, the trial begins with Reen's group needing to show their worth. After successfully defeating Rita and Aurelia, they come face to face with Rosilia, who guards the Spectral Moon Mirror. This is an artifact that the Hexen clan had been guarding for hundreds of years, which has the ability to show fragments of the past. However, Rosilia then transforms into her true form as the Burning Sphinx, holy beast of the Septurion of Fire. However, she is not the original, as she inherited the position after the original disappeared 900 years ago. Rosilia was originally a familiar made in the image of the original Holy Beast, but she later absorbed its power and memories from the Spectral Moon Mirror upon the original disappearing. As such, the children of Erebonia must show their resolve to prove they have what it takes to prevent the Great Twilight from happening. After an intense battle, Reen and Co have passed the trial, with Rosilia permitting access to the Spectral Moon Mirror, where the truth is revealed. Images of the distant past begin to play out, with Drykos being harassed by a black entity bargaining with his soul. However, the entity leaves when Leanne stops by to see how Drykos is doing. She is pleased to see Drykos again, giving her blessings to both him, his wife and his children. We move forward a century to the life of Osborn. He came from a wealthy family, but an avalanche had killed both of his parents. However, he would soon be adopted by the Baron of Ymir, gaining a brother named Tio. Osborn would later join in the army, making friends with Olaf and Van Dyke until he met the love of his life named Cassia. He would marry her and later have a child named Reen. Around the same time, Leanne would watch over Osborn happy over the family he had started. However, that was when tragedy had struck. With his home raided and family seriously injured, Osborn begged for the survival regardless if it came from the goddess or a demon. In that moment, Ishmelga heard Osborn's plea and granted the survival of his son, but in return, Osborn must be his awakener. Osborn accepted this offer, and by giving Reen his heart, Reen would go on to survive. After successfully getting Osborn to become his awakener, Albrecht possesses Franz after Ishmelga influenced him to design weaponry. But when Kruger had requested the report Novartis had assigned to Franz, Albrecht severed the connection Franz had with Ouroboros by beginning a battle with Kruger, as his alliance was now sworn to Ishmelga. As the leader of the gnomes, Albrecht hypnotized George using the same hypnosis technique that Weissman had developed in order to gather intel whilst George attended Thoughts. Albrecht would later manipulate both the Red Constellation and Zephyr by making their leaders battle one another near Zector, causing a pseudo-rivalry. As such, a link was formed with the Divine Knight that allowed Rutger to gain immortality. With the epiphany of Ishmelga's existence, the group came to realize that every tragedy of Erebonia had been connected to Ishmelga in one form or another. The creation of the Dark Dragon, the War of the Lions, the Massacre of Hamal, the 100 Days War, and now the Great Twilight. This revelation causes the curse within Reen to re-trigger, making him lose control. Though while in the shrine, Valimar is able to briefly clarify on the truth. Although Ishmelga had a big role within everything, he was not solely responsible, for he took advantage of the deplorables of humanity, pushing them over the edge to act on their warped ideas. With Ishmelga being the strongest knight, the best odds for victory would require Reen to absorb the power of the other knights. After listening to Valimar's advice, Reen's group decides to focus on Rutger to try and persuade him to join their cause. However, Albrecht ends up casting a barrier around the shrine, preventing a rivalry from commencing. As such, they infiltrate the battleship where Kruger and George lay in their way, guarding the generator maintaining the barrier. The two are defeated, but Albrecht then releases his own soldat. Upon attacking the machine, it begins to go haywire and initiates an attack on Irina and Schmidt, but both George and Sharon manage to counter this attack, destroying both it and the barrier generator. The four then return to the Courageous Two, Aiden and Reen and co. With the barrier now down, Reen's group head towards the Draco Shrine to find Rutger. After defeating Leo and Zeno, the group find Rutger at the end of the shrine. They question his motive for Aiden Osborn, though in reality, Rutger has no preference for who he sides with, as it's the Jaeger way to do what the contractor tells you. As Rutger has no say in the Great Twilight, Fee takes it upon herself to show how far she has come since the Jaeger days as a bracer. Rutger is impressed with her prowess in battle before the stage is set for the rivalry to begin. As Reen's subordinate, Valimar and Aldine begin their second rivalry with Zector, with the pair coming out on top. With Rutger's defeat, Zector begins to get absorbed by Valimar, but when Reen tries to pull the same stunt he did with Crow, Rutger refuses. Rutger acknowledges that his life has already ended, he doesn't want to postpone the inevitable. In his final moments, he reassures Fee how proud he is as a father to see the woman Fee has grown to become. With that, his life comes to an end and Valimar absorbs Zector's power. The next target is Arianrod, for Reen's group believes she is the next most likely to join their cause. They eventually hear word of a pillar of light and crossbow from Lloyd, but just like before, a barrier surrounds it. They find the source of the barrier atop of Orcus Tower. Due to security, they won't be able to infiltrate the building as easy as they did with the airship. As a result, Reen and co devise a plan. They arrange a performance at Arc-en-Ciel as a treat for the soldiers before D-Day. This causes the security at Orcus Tower to be significantly lower than before. Reen's group manages to get into the Thaumaturgirl sector in Orcus Tower, where McBurn and Victor, who's been influenced by the curse, stand in their way. They eventually defeat the two, with Laura's mastery over the Arcite style managing to break the influence the curse has over Victor. However, McBurn still wants to continue fighting by summoning his Angbar, but this triggers another soldat to prevent this. McBurn is pissed off that Albrecht would forfeit his right to fight, so he begins to attack the soldat, but no damage is sustained from its anti-magic armor. Luckily, Aurea, Mueller, and Dex Vander provide backup, defeating the soldat with ease. McBurn eventually retreats, but looks forward to D-Day as he will be able to show Reen and co his true form without the threat of obliterating everything around him. The group make their way to the roof of Orcus Tower, where they find the barrier generator before them. Maribel makes herself known, but she's not interested in fighting them as she's only interested in the rivalries. As such, she turns the generator off and retreats. With the barrier turned off, Reen's group head to the Stellar Shrine to meet with Arianrod. After defeating Ines and Anea, they find Arianrod and ask why a saint like herself would join Ouroboros and work towards the Great Twilight. She admits that everything she has done for the past 250 years was for her beloved Drycles. Drycles had confined with her that a darkness was tormenting his soul. As such, when he passed, she feared that this darkness would follow him even into the next life. Therefore, she searched the mirror to find his reincarnate, which she eventually did 30 years ago. She noticed that he was doing well for himself, that it was possible that the darkness did not follow him after all. She then met with the Grandmaster of Ouroboros to speak on her proposition, but instead of meeting, she warned Leanne of a catastrophe that would come to pass. Leanne rushed to make sure that this darkness had not returned when she least expected it, but she was too late. From that point forward, she joined Ouroboros, becoming Arianrod, with a plan to bring forth the Great Twilight so she could be the one to personally kill Ishmelga. With that, Arianrod summons her lance and prepares to complete her centuries-long pledge to Drycles. After a relentless battle, Reen's group manages to crack Arianrod's lance, setting the stage for the third rivalry. Arianrod summons Argrion, and with enough willpower, Arianrod is defeated. Admired for her resolve and determination, Reen invites Ironrod to their cause. Though before she can accept this offer, Rufus appears and from behind gets the final blow. Rufus absorbs the power of Argreon, whilst Rain and Co surround Ironrod as she says her parting words. She couldn't be more proud of the Soul Ritter, for they were like the daughter she could never have. She's also happy to know that the descendants of her friend from the Wall Alliance honours her name in their family. With the last of her strength, she gives the last ounce of life to Valma to help aid in Reen's battle with Ishmelga. Devastated in the death of the 7th Anguis, Campanella, Vita, LeBlanc, Joshua and Rand pay their respects. Their mourning is interrupted though, as a flash of light appears in the sky with the MPL fortress as well as 5 salt pills manifesting over Erebonia. With one day before the war on Calvard, Reen and Co head to Michelin Wonderland to relax and make some last minute preparations. As one of the Divine Blades, Cassius has been tasked with running Reen's trial to prove his mastery over the 8 Leaves 1 Blade technique on behalf of Yonka Thai. Reen chooses the 7th form, where he then faces his Org self and successfully defeats any self-doubt. From passing the trial, Reen is awarded with the title of Divine Blade of the 8 Leaves 1 Blade technique. Later that night, Reen catches Oliver with Sherazade on the Courageous 2. With it possibly being their last night together, Oliver proposes to Sherazade asking if she would do the honour of becoming his wife. With 5 minutes until the start of the Great War, troops of every division get into their positions. With the Imperial Army having 1.2 million troops, Operation Millie Mirage's only chance of victory is with the alliance made with the neighbouring nations. With Muse's Weissman army of 100,000, Calvard's army of 800,000, the Burl's army of 120,000, Remiferia's army of 80,000, as well as Le Mans, Orid, Crossbell, Northumbria, Arteria and the Jaeger Corps providing an extra 100,000 units, coming to a total competing with the Imperial Army. When the hour hits 12, the Great War begins with Van Dyke commanding the invasion of Calvard, whilst Cassius commands the counterattack. With both operations in effect, Oliver begins his own by having Estelle, Lloyd, Aurelia, Duvally and Angelica leading their 5 groups to destroy the 5 salt pills that are generating a barrier around the Imperial fortress. Upon defeating all 5 Guardians, the salt pills lose their power and the barrier is broken, allowing Reen's group to raid the fortress. Their first obstacle is Claire and Lecter, who are still loyal to Osborn regardless of how they feel about his plan. Although the curse gives them strength, both are defeated. Next is Shirley and Cedric, whom Kurt manages to crack Cedric's hunger for power as nothing more than the curse taking advantage of his inferiority complex. Cedric doesn't want to admit it, but he was taken advantage of to spread the curse in admiration of Osborn, the reincarnation of his ancestor. Once their battle is complete, the stage is set for the 4th rivalry where Cedric summons Testarossa to fight against Valmar and Aldine. Cedric loses once again, with Testarossa's power being absorbed by Valimar. Further into the fortress lays Campanelle and Maribel, though they don't seem to be all too interested in fighting, but would much rather watch the rivalries. Unia is frustrated with how nonchalant the two are as she degrades them and Ouroboros for how illogical the society is as a whole. After defeating the pair, the group demand them to spill the beans on everything. They comply and admit that the Phantasmal Blades plan is still in effect and is almost complete once the Great One is reformed. They aren't interested in capturing it, they simply wish to observe the effects of the Septurians, though they don't expect the group to understand the gravity of their plan, for they are still shackled into this world. With that, they retreat whilst the group try to process what they were just told. Regardless, they continue forward and are greeted by Albrecht and Rufus. Albrecht laughs at the idea of Reen winning the rivalry. For centuries, the Divine Knights have fought one another, and time has shown, over and over, that Argreon and El Prado were the strongest. However, Reen's group dismisses Albrecht's ignorance, whilst Eustace pulls out his blade to show Rufus what it means to be a true noble. Reen's group is victorious and the stage is set for the 5th rivalry to set. The battle with El Prado is the most difficult Valimar and Ordine has faced thus far, but they are eventually successful in defeating Rufus. The final person laying in their way is McBurn, but it's revealed that McBurn isn't even from Zemuria. Although the Septium Church argues that Aeos created the world, trying to leave Zemuria is impossible as there's a limit to how far or high you can reach. As such, items like McBurn's Angbab were created using the divergent laws, for they exhibit properties that shouldn't exist in this world. But anything that can't be explained through science is automatically believed to be a gift from the goddess, like that of the Salt Pail in Northumbria. The curiosity to find the origin of those items is what sparked the creation of the DG cult, as they believe that the Septium Church was lying about Aeos. McBurn admits that he isn't even from Zemuria. Heck, he's not even fully human as he transforms into his true form as Meraku Maldar Wrong. It takes everyone in Reen's group to survive McBurn's attack, but they eventually manage to defeat him. Though after recovering the memories of the Beyond, he transforms into his normal form. He then gives Reen the Primordial Flame to aid in the final rivalry before retreating. All that is left is Osborn. He congratulates Reen's group for defeating every ally of his. He then challenges the group to arise to this battle to change the foundation that he laid for Erebonia. Osborn is able to fend off the entirety of Reen's group, but eventually the stage is set for the final rivalry, with Valimar and Ordine needing to put their everything in to try and defeat Ishmelga. But before they can begin, Albrecht intercepts pleading Osborn to postpone the final rivalry until the climax of the Great War to guarantee the reformation of the Great One. But Osborn reassures Albrecht that the reformation will work regardless. The legendary battle commences, and even though Valimar has the power of 5 other knights, Ishmelga is still a force to be reckoned with. But in the end, with the help of Crow and McBurn, the battle between father and son concludes with Reen victorious, absorbing Ishmelga. However, Ring then feels the burden of the curse with it taking control over him. With this one opportunity to get rid of Ishmelga once and for all, he uses the last of his control to pilot Valma above the atmosphere to rid Erebonia of its curse, all the while sacrificing himself.
Now, go.
Ring agrees to help Torval investigate the cause for demons appearing across Erebonia. They eventually come across the Sanctus Shrine, where they find Argress, the holy piece of the Septurion of Earth, although it's only an echo of its former self after Ring had slaughtered it back at the Graal of Erebos. Impressed with Ring's group's determination to do the impossible, he engages in battle with them. From this battle, Ring and Ko are able to break the shackles the curse had over Argress. As a reward, he gives the last ounce of his power in the form of the Earthen Prison to Ring, hoping it will aid in defeating Ishmelga. However, Ring then feels the burden of the curse with it taking control over him. But that's when Franz appears in a moment where the curse has momentarily weakened. He tells Ring that it's possible to destroy Ishmelga, but first he needs to separate Ishmelga from his own soul and materialize him in their plane. By using the Earthen Prison, mastery of the Void technique, and the self-assurance strengthened with the bonds he has formed, he is able to force Ishmelga into his astral form. The last thing to do is to defeat it. And with the assistance of all of his allies made along the way, they crack down Ishmelga's strength. Ring then chases down Ishmelga as it escapes into another dimension before he vanquishes the embodiment of evil once and for all. Whilst in this dimension, Ring is allowed to have his final goodbye to Osborn before watching Osborn, Leanne and Rutka walk into the afterlife. Ring returns to reality where the group celebrate their victory. However, with the rivalries now over, Crow has lost his immortality and begins to fade out of existence. But that's when Franz and Rosalia are able to grant one final miracle. As leaders of the Kin of Earth and Fire respectively, they use the Septurions to grant Crow mortality once more. Franz also points the group to the Gnome's workshop again if they wish to find a replica of Milling's model. With that, Franz says his goodbyes to his daughter before he and the Divine Knights fade from existence after serving their purpose. After a ceasefire was announced the next day, Ring's group goes back to the Black Workshop where they indeed find a replica of Milling's model. With using the Sword of the End, they manage to transfer her spirit into the body successfully. Emperor Eugen would go on to make a full recovery after his surgery, where he verified the assassination attempt was indeed not by the hands of Calvard. As such, Erebonia began to get massive amounts of backlash from neighbouring nations, though internally the country was also a mess with both Osborn being painted as a tyrant and the disappearance of the Crown Prince. As Rufus was Osborn's right-hand man, he was arrested and took full ownership over the plan, allowing Claire and Lecter to continue working to maintain order in the country. Though eventually, both the Intelligence Division and the RMP would lose their positions as government organisations, with Erebonia instead reopening their Bracer guilds across the country. Oliver and Alfred also began to engage with the general public to win over the people's trust in Erebonia again. Cedric might have been missing, but the truth was he accepted a position with Ouroboros and would go on to become an enforcer. As for Calvert, with President Rocksmith nearing the end of his term, he demanded Erebonia to make reparations to the country for the attempted invasion. This was agreed upon, but only on the criteria that Calvert didn't try to invade Crossbell. Speaking of, Crossbell would eventually regain its independence with the thanks to the SSS, and with Crossbell gaining independence, Northumbria would do something similar, though Durai decided to stay with the Empire to maintain its economy. Oliver and Scheherazade would eventually have their wedding, making Scheherazade a princess of Erebonia. Finally, in the Celestial Globe, Campanello talks with Anguis 1 and 3 about the allies that they've lost. That is when the Grand Master appears and confirms that the Septurion of Fire and Earth have disappeared from humanity's hands. Although humanity escaped the Great Twilight, 3 years remain until all returns to primordial nothingness. With the completion of the second stage of the Orpheus final plan, she announces the third stage, the Eternal Recurrence plan, has begun.